When should you recruit NORSCAN Marauders? Now that I've taken the measure of the NORSCAN faction post-Tides of Torment, I want to revisit with greater focus the older units too, quote-unquote, and also to mention the Regiments of Renown where applicable. Hopefully it adds value to my videos. Since I did a preview on a lot of units preceding Tides, it'll be a brisk recap before I get into the meat of the argument. When, if ever, should we recruit Marauders? As in, what's their purpose? The basic Marauder is recruited for 400 gold and 100 upkeep, the usual 4-to-1 ratio. CA only breaks this rule for deliberate balance tweaks. An Empire Swordsman, our eternal benchmark of valiant mediocrity, is 375 gold to recruit. The Marauder comes with 120 entities on Ultra scale and 9,360 health between them. For comparison, the Empire Swordsmen have 8,280 health unit-wide. Marauders come with armor 15 and shields that block 35% of missile fire from the front if it's small arms. Swordsmen start with armor 30 and identical quality shields. Leadership of 60 is okay, but not super high. Speed 35 and charge speed 43 are nimble-ish, and a slight advantage over other troops thanks to the low armor. Melee attack begins at 34, attack interval 4.2 is within specs, no splash damage. Melee defense starts at 28. This is a weakness, but it is not dramatically lower than similar troops' starting figure. We'll come back to this. Weapon strength 28 is according to the swordsman standard, split base 21 and armor piercing 7. So, with each hit from a successful attack roll, 7 damage is going into that Empire Swordsman opposing you, for sure, but the 21 may or may not be applied. That goes to the armor roll, and for armor 30 it'll be a 15 to 30% chance the base damage is ignored for that hit. Future ones make their own separate rolls. So while we love 100% armor piercing, in the big scheme of things, the Marauder is a lot more effective against the Empire Swordsman than the Dwarf Longbeard or Blackguard of Naggarot. Charge bonus is 18, which is pretty high for infantry, and mass is 100. Mass means how much they resist being knocked down and how much their sheer existence brings chariots plunging into their lines to an early halt. And the gist is, not much, not enough. Chariots will tend to roll over them in multiple senses. Charge bonus is applied fully on the first hit of a charge, so in this case, melee attack 52, and to weapon strength along the same ratio, in this case, weapon strength 46. The charge bonus decays linearly for something like 15 seconds. Getting a new clean charge is difficult for infantry in particular, so it's mostly relevant if an opponent breaks and you charge a new unit. The Marauders wouldn't be recruited for what they are if they didn't have the rage mechanic. The TLDR, since I did a standalone video on that mechanic, is that it takes 100 seconds of melee contact with the enemy to gain the full benefits: leadership plus 8, melee attack plus 5, and physical resistance plus 10%. But there's no indication these benefits disappear in the course of a single battle. Will a Marauder unit last 100 seconds? Depends, doesn't it? But lasting 51 seconds and getting leadership plus 4, melee attack plus 3, and physical resistance 5%, yeah, they might last that long. So that's our starting point. They can hide in forest too. Woo! Now let's look at the Regiment of Renown. Recruited for 575 gold and 150 upkeep from a relatively low legendary lord level, we have leadership 70 or 10 better, melee attack 43 or 9 better, melee defense 36 or 8 better. Are these what we get from a Marauders unit at rank 9? They are indeed. Those stats are very convenient for a basement tier line infantry unit you don't expect to reach rank 9, but it gives us perspective. So what's the special sauce? The Icehorn ROR comes with immunity to psychology, much like Bearmen, making them immune to fear and terror morale debuffs and morale shocks, and they have perfect vigor. Quietly one of the best traits in the entire game, so they'll be fresh in game mechanics terms, even if fighting in melee for 10 in-game minutes. That's nice, that's very nice. To briskly plow through the snow of other mechanics, if a general's redline skills includes 3 pips of fearsome warriors, then they'd get melee attack plus 8 and weapon strength plus 12%. Note that the first pip gives melee attack plus 4 by itself. The former puts rank 0 Marauders from 34 to 42, and Icehorn from 43 to 51. The latter rounds to weapon strength 31. It helps. Rank 7 and up, including Icehorn, count as Champions of the North, and that redline skill grants armor plus 12, so 15 becomes 27, melee defense plus 5, so the Icehorns would go up to 41, and physical resistance plus 10%, so they start with 10% and can work themselves up to 20% through rage. The tech tree has been cleaned up a lot, and that's nice. Chaos Surge is something you can get in 2 turns from the start of the game, and instantly you get leadership plus 4 and recruit rank plus 1. Even basic Marauder chieftains can learn a skill to give recruit rank plus 3 on top of this in their blue line, plus a province commandment for 1 more, so getting mid-rank Marauders instantly is no pipe dream. If you're Wulfric, you may be rushing Blade Worker's Hammer, providing melee attack plus 4 and weapon strength plus 10%. The only other tech specifically Marauder friendly would be Champions of War for plus 5% casualty replenishment rate for Marauders only, but that's where your mass infantry comes from, and plus 10% physical resistance, but only if they're rank 7 or above. So yes, that means you can get up to 30% with basic bottom tier infantry. And if you have a War Mammoth War Shrine, be it with Sail, the new DLC Lord, Great Sorcerer Shamans, or just from a Tier 5 building, deaths around you can grant up to plus 10% more physical resistance. And that's nice, but against anything with magical attack, that'd be worthless. Unless you have an over 50% health Cursed Etten Runecaller from the new DLC, and then if a given enemy is within 55 meters of it, their magical attacks are removed. Spells will still bug you though, but with a little of the spice toned down. My video on that unit has more details. So when should you recruit the Marauders? That's intimately related to what we use them for, but I'm still renaming the section. At this point, you're asking, okay, the math's pretty flattering. I can get a 100 upkeep unit. First of all, Wulfric as your legendary lord would give a global minus 15% to the upkeep for Marauders, so it would be 85 gold per turn base, and counting down until you have lots of armies. Okay, an 85 gold unit that with a tech on the start of turn 7, and 3 redline skill pips beyond the first, and rank 0 Marauders have melee attack 42 and weapon strength 34. Their defense is still a bit low, but they hit kinda hard, especially on the initial charge. Why am I using them? So here's the thing. The vast majority of Marauders past this point do not have shields. You have to go up to the Marauder champions for that, and therefore, in an early Wulfric campaign, I will group 3 fresh-faced Marauder recruits with my champions and use them as my front line. I group Marauder Berserkers and Marauder Great Weapons together as a second line, as in behind the shielded front line. When I send that front line into battle, it's not with the expectation they'll kill everything by themselves. I mean, Wulfric has Seafang, that's really good when enemies get into a long, predictable melee line, and I abuse it appropriately. So what we have is this. Marauders are meant to take arrows, bolts, and bullets you prefer they take rather than your other forces, and they tie down enemy infantry, especially melee infantry, and they're fast enough to chase missile units for mortal races, and they will kill an entirely respectable number of their foes, provided those foes are armored less than ornery dwarfs, with manlier beards than evil Vikings. These are not hold-the-line troops, albeit they will create a line just fine. They are not anvils in the traditional sense. They are offensive infantry, yes, the most basic, but short of crane gunners hitting them, they'll still have 35% missile block chance, and that matters. Also, to be perfectly blunt, some of their kin have nowhere near melee defense 28 and rank 0. You're better off having Marauders take the sword blows at first, and following up with all kinds of wonderful killing potential in the rest of the roster. That's considerable value for what you pay for them, so let's talk about the weaknesses. Well, they're basic. What are they going to do if Demigryph Knights barrel through them? What do they have against a Kadai Destroyer? What about dragons breathing fire and debating them to death? Well, no, they have nothing against all of that. How about High Elf Archers? If they can survive to 5 meters or less, they'll be okay. But will they? And obviously, they aren't Khorne troops, so spells will hit hard. So those are considerations. Now, take an early game Cathay army with a few feature units and a boatload of Jade Warriors and Peasant Long Spearmen. How will they do? They're just fine. They'll chew up the Spearmen and will bash around the Jade Warriors, but not be any good at finishing them off. It'll still make their morale shakier and set them up for real damage from your other forces. They'll hold the massed troops in place for a while, gain leadership, melee, and physical resistance as the brawl continues, and then they might break and you lose, if nothing else happens. Maybe and maybe not. Maybe they can actually win. That's a lot of time they're buying you. They're not exactly enjoying being hit by peasant archers or a bunch of crossbowmen, but they're also holding out as best they can, waiting for you, their illustrious lord, to figure something out and crush their foes decisively. That's where the rest of your plans kick in. The Marauders are doing their job. Did you bring chariots? Did you hire ogre mercenaries? Do you have cavalry? The archers can be rolled up, and then you hit the Jade Warriors from the rear, avoiding the spears. Did you bring a spellcaster? Do you have trolls? Then you have options when the enemy blobs up too much, or can mulch the Jade Warrior armor. And if you have a Dreadmaw, you're probably going to do a lot of sinister laughter. So the conclusion is very simple. Marauders are a unit you can get basically anywhere you see. It takes one turn to get a building at an altar so that you can get them. A dinky minor port settlement like the one Wulfric starts in front of can recruit them from the main settlement, and the port grants +1 to local recruitment slots. So colonize, and you can get 3 of them for turn 2. They are the easiest unit in the entire NORSCAN campaign to ramp up and mass produce from the Marauder printing presses. So the corollary. When should you not recruit them? Well, when I was raiding the Empire in Bretonnia and seeing stacks with 6 and up cavalry units in a single army, and I mean real cavalry like a couple of Knights of the Black Rose, a couple of Blazing Sun, 1 Demigryph Knights, and the Knights of Moor, like, okay, maybe I need Spearmen for this one. But that is another video. Take care, and have fun axing for money.